Welcome to the YouTube channel of Equippers Taupo. We believe that 2020 is going to be the year of overflow, so we pray you are blessed by this message.
Hi everyone, hi, you can take a seat, It's so wonderful to be here, so wonderful. And Sam Grantula, you are gold. Oh, I'm a really big fan. Hey, I am just going to share my story, and I hope you can hear what Pastor Carl has been talking about. And even, I hope you noticed or you understood what was going on in your heart even when Sam was speaking. And this is the importance of telling a story. And when we tell a story, and storytelling is actually a really, really important tool that we all have. When someone says to you, how's your day gone? How you tell that story is really important. How you tell that story to yourself, how you tell it to your loved ones around you, how you tell it to others. And it's really important because when you tell your story, it's in our brain's makeup that when someone tells a story, when you're listening to someone tell a story, you are immediately identifying how you fit into that, how you experience that. And they've done the science behind it all, where they've hooked up things to people's heads, and they're watching their brain activity as a story is being told. And when someone is telling the sad part of the story, that lights up in someone's brain. That part lights up, or a happy part, it lights up. And that's the beauty of storytelling. So today, even as I share my story and I introduce you to my life, that's not really what I'm doing. I am trying to introduce you to the grace of God and how it has worked in my life and how God has shown up in my life. So I'm going to start with a series of photos. Photo number 1, it's me and my husband. Yeah, he's a good-looking man. Yeah. I love beards on men. Specifically women, if that's your thing, go for it, sister. That's up to you. But I'm a fan of beards on men. I think they're very good looking. All right. So I was devastated. If you follow my husband on Instagram, I just think you should. If you're just wanting joy and laughter in your day, follow my husband on Instagram, because he thinks it's his personal mission to bring the world joy via his Instagram. So you will have a laugh. And I was devastated over lockdown, where my husband, as a dare and for charity, shaved off his beard. And I tell you, I love the Lord. But that was testing, man. I was like, I can't look at you. I was like, you look like a 12-year-old. I can't. I just can't. I cannot. You better pray that grows back soon. And it was so strange, but he actually raised just under $1,000 for charity. So, I guess that's all right. So that's us, that's my husband, and both of us, we love God, we love living life really large, and we probably have many stories like Sam Grant. We love having people over in our home. We see our home as a place to love people, and as a place to include people and feed people, and we just think God does incredible things through food. So, as you can tell, we love food. Okay, next photo. This is us and our boy. Oh. And our son is Malachi, and that's him there. That's at Christmas time. He's wearing a shirt from his aunt in Fiji, and he's wearing what we call a suluvatanga, and that is it's not a skirt. It's cultural. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so my aunt, she sent it over to us, and she's like, you make sure that son of yours knows he's Fijian. And so we dressed him up in the get-up and took lots of photos and make sure she saw it. So that's our boy Malachi. He's nearly 2. Next photo. This is him for real. This is our wild child. And he loves being naked. And he hates having shoes on. And he just loves, I tried to do like an art lesson over lockdown with him. And the paint went everywhere except for the piece of paper. So at one point I was just like, let's just go with it. Just do whatever you want, Malachi. And then he took all the paintbrushes and ran down the street. And then the next photo, this is him like a week ago. Look, guys. Oh, I love him. And yes, he is wearing his own merchandise. People make this kid his own merch. They take photos and they put it on t-shirts. And so his name is Malachi, but we call him King Kai. We realized that we never should have done that because now he acts like a king. And the whole world revolves around King Kai. So that's our little nuclear family, and we live in West Auckland. And the next photo, this is myself. Oh no! If you can go to I don't know if I sent it. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, go back. No. Just go back to King Kai in the driveway. Yeah. Oh, there he is. Yeah. And so for myself, my own family, I have 2 older brothers, Mum and Dad. This is just a quick picture of me. I have 2 older brothers, so I'm the only girl, and I'm the youngest. You already don't like me. I can tell. Also, my name is Esther, so I was named after a queen. And so exactly what you were thinking right now, that's me. That's me. And my 2 older brothers are amazing. One of them lives over in Australia, and one of them lives in Auckland. And we have a wonderful, wonderful family. However, our growing up wasn't always amazing. When we were growing up, I don't know, can anyone remember when you were children? For some of you, that'll be a lot easier. But you remember when you were younger, right? I don't know if you did this, but we did this. We watched television, a lot of cartoons, and we read comics, etc. And we had some favorites. And especially on Saturday mornings, myself and my brothers, my mum would allow us to watch Saturday morning cartoons. So we had a few favorites. We were big fans of X-Men. Anyone? Yeah, okay. Yeah, come on, X-Men. We were huge fans of X-Men. We were also huge fans of the Power Rangers. Anyone? Yes, come on. Yeah. Huge fans of the Power Rangers. Also, really big fans of Captain Planet. Who remembers that? Yes. Earth, fire, wind, water, and the 5th element, heart. So cheesy, right? But we loved these cartoons. And what would happen was, my mum was very strict on us. There were only certain times we were allowed to watch cartoons. And then after that, we didn't have phones or anything like that, or we weren't allowed lengthy times watching television. So after that, what we would do is we would then just play. And let me just give you a picture of my mother. When we were growing up in Auckland, we lived in a 5-bedroom villa. But my mother put all 3 of us in one room. And we asked, why would you do that, Mum? She said, you will learn to share. You will learn to keep your space tidy. You will learn what it is to live and consider other people. You will learn to have fights. You will learn to make up. You will learn. Right? So that's my mother. And so my mum was very strict on us, and so we just learned how to play pretend. And I loved it, being the only girl, which means if we played X-Men, I could be all the cool girl heroes, right? I could be Storm, because I look like Halle Berry. Right? Don't laugh too loud. Okay. And when we played the Power Rangers, I could be both the yellow Power Ranger and the pink one, while the boys had to fight over who was going to be the cool white one. But when we played Captain Planet, I was allowed to be wind and water, while the boys had to fight over who was going to be Earth. Because he was the coolest. Or fire. Fire was fantastic too. And so this is what we love to do. We love to play pretend. And as children, when we played, we never ever thought, while we were playing, we never thought that there was any evil on this earth that would be able to overcome us, right? We thought with our superpowers that we could save the world. We thought with our superpowers we could change the world, right? Don't you remember that as a kid? See, this is what we never did as children. As children, we never got together after the television was turned off. We never got together and sat together and thought, man, today, let's pretend to be really average. Right? No one ever did that. Man, today, let's pretend that we're going to be bogged down by a lot of debt. Like, man, that's how we want to live. We just never did that. As children, there was one way that we lived, and it was big, and it was positive, and it could change the world, and that was our role in life. There was nothing that could stop us. And then, as with you, somehow it changes. Somehow we grow up like a badge of honor, right? And we think, oh yeah, it's wonderful. I'm all grown now. That means I can be super average. And that's okay. I tell you when it changed for us, it changed because although we had this fantastic upbringing and a wonderful mum who loved us and who created safe places for us, she couldn't keep us safe all the time. And that was because, you know that time in your life when you're a child and you realize that your parents are human? You know what I'm saying? It's shocking. And that's not even a joke, like legit. It scares you when you realize your parents don't have it all together. And so we quickly realized that as we got older. We got older, and my dad was a very violent man. And he was fantastic, maybe 70% of the time. And then something would happen, and he would hit the roof. And it wouldn't even be something really bad. It would just be a small thing in our eyes, but he would hit the roof, and he was violent, and he would beat my mum, and he would beat my brothers, and he would beat us. And it was normal. I didn't know anything else. It was normal. I didn't know that there was another way to live. I didn't know that there was a way that men should treat women. I didn't know. I just thought that's the way it was. And things changed when I went to school and I started going to my friends' houses. And I started thinking, oh, yeah, their dad's really nice. Oh, there's something different. And I began to realize, oh, this is actually not okay. And then I guess the journey kind of carries on, and it got really, really bad with my parents. My mum, thank God, she decided, and I've walked this journey with my mum, and I asked my mum, I said, Ma, why did you leave Dad? How did you end up making that decision? And she says, I stayed together for you guys. That's why we stayed together as long as we did. But she said there was one moment where my dad was dragging her into the room to beat her. And as that was happening, she looked down the hallway and she saw my eldest brother grab both of us, my middle brother and myself. He grabbed us and he took us outside. And she thought, now I'm asking my son to do this. And so she said from that point on, she said, I can't do this. I have to. Now for my kids, I've got to leave. And so she made that decision to leave my dad. And so there was divorce. And, can I just be really honest? Initially, it sounded really exciting because that meant we would have 2 Christmases. Right? I was like, you guys do what you need to do, but that means I'm going to get 2 sets of presents. Like, that's amazing. And that's what in my head as a kid. And then I was like, 2 birthdays. Oh, man, it's going to be amazing. until it wasn't 2 birthdays, it was just one, and Dad wasn't there. And I remember the day because I'm brown, and brown people, we do life really loud in general. We just have one volume, right, just loud. And I remember the day my dad left, because we were all in the lounge and my mum was trying to explain it to us. And I looked at my dad and I said to my dad, why do you have to go? Why can't you guys just sort it out? Why do you have to go? And I remember he just said nothing. And he grabbed his keys, put his shoes on, walked outside. And I remember every detail. I was 7 years old. I remember our car. It was a grey Ford station wagon. I remember the number plate NT3499. And I watched that car drive down the driveway. And something happened in me with a girl who believed, man, anything could happen. The world is my oyster. Like, I could be anything and do anything. All of a sudden, I'm alone. Why can't I breathe? Why is it so quiet? All of a sudden, everything changed from there. And I don't know where that point was for you, but we all have that point somewhere in our lives. And sometimes that point is brought on by pain, by things that go on around us. Sometimes it's not family, sometimes it's something not so great that happens at school, but somewhere that wonder and that hope just kind of takes a back seat a little bit. And instead of being the main character in our story, we're just trying to get by. We're just trying to survive. We're just trying to carry on to the next day and do the next thing. And so today, tonight, I really feel like God wants to allow us to dream again like we used to restore hope like we used to have when we were kids, to really believe and for hope to rise again in us. Like, oh man, God, you can do incredible and amazing things. So that happened, and life kind of carried on as it does. My mum worked. I remember my mum working about 3 jobs just to get by, and she took care of us and she raised us. And then at about 14, I just got sick of it. Oh, yeah. Most teenagers just get sick of anything, right? I'm just sick of it. And so at 14, by that time, I was really hurt, kept getting re-wounded by my dad. And when I was 14, my parents, again, were well divorced by that time. My dad was trying to find a church to be a part of when we walked into this church. And this church was much like this. One thing I haven't told you is that I never went to a church like this. I went to a Fijian Methodist church. It's very different to this. We sing hymns. It's all in Fijian. It's very quiet. And I remember walking into Equippers Church 20 years ago. And I walked in and it was like this, right? And I was like, why is everyone so loud? Right? And let me be honest, I was like, what is going on? What? And I was legit, I was like, everyone here is weird. And I walked in, can I just say that probably very new people to church walk in and think the same thing of you, right? Man, you guys are weird, man. And I walked in and the music, and it freaked me out because there was a song that was playing, but it had a hook that I knew, and the hook was a rap song from Tupac. Right? So I walked in and I could hear like Tupac playing in church. Dang, da dang, 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 dang. Dang, da dang, dang, dang. And I was like, what is this? As a teenager, I was like, what do you mean this church is singing Tupac? I don't know what is going on. Of course it wasn't. They just stole the music line. And people are dancing, right? People are like jamming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with these people? They can't dance. Why are they dancing? They seem to be unashamed of their uncoordination. And I was like, what is up with these people? Then the music slowed down and people started lifting their hands. And I, legit, 14 years old, I was like, it's a bit rude, guys. there's obviously stuff going on in stage. You can ask your questions later. Right in my head, I was like, what are you doing? Ask a question later. Like, this is so inappropriate. And I had no frame of reference what was going on. But during the whole service, the whole deal, I was like, what? I have never seen the... And as weird as you all are, as weird as the whole thing was, all of a sudden something happened in my heart. And I was like, I'd like to live a little bit like this, maybe. A little bit like, I don't care what people think of me. I'm just going to do my thing. I don't care. And I couldn't deny that the people who were dancing and lifting their hands, I couldn't deny that there seemed to be some kind of joy that they had, some kind of happiness, some kind of positivity that I was desperate for. So as a 14-year-old, I sat at the back of the church, and I sat there in all my 14-year-old sass. Right, and the preacher at the front I didn't even remember what they were speaking about, but I sat at the back and I had this conversation with God. And I remember this conversation. I said, God, I don't know who you are. I don't even know if you're real, but I'm going to make a deal with you. Right? To this day, I don't know if you're allowed to make deals with God. I don't know, but I just know as a 14-year-old, I did. And I said, God, I'm going to make this deal with you. I said, I have been attending and going to a church my whole life, Fijian Methodist one. I said, God, I don't know if you're real, but I'm tired, and I don't know if I can do this for a long time. This kind of hurt. This kind of rejection, this kind of loneliness, this kind of sadness. I don't know. So I said, God, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my whole life, right? And for me, that I said, I will go to church on Sunday. I said, God, I will go. I will go to youth on Fridays. I will do whatever you want me to do. And I said this to God, and I will give you my whole life, and I will believe in you. I'll believe every word you say. I will read the word, and I will believe it with everything I am. But the minute that you let me down, I will know you're not real. I'll know this whole thing is a lie, that these people really are not just weird, but crazy too. I will know it, and I'll walk away from you and this whole thing. And so I prayed that prayer as a 14-year-old, and I stood up, and I was like, all right, let's test this out. So I tested it out, and I came to church on Sunday, and I came to church youth on Fridays, and I went to small groups during the week. Man, I was 14 years old. Within 2 years, not even that, probably a year, I was leading my own small group, right? Pastor Tere, Carl's wife, she was the first person in my small group. Praise God, she's still here. Because if it was because of me, she probably wouldn't have. But because of the Lord, she's still here. But all of this was me as a teenager saying, come on, God, if you're real, every day. Right? And I think it's a little bit of a miracle, because most people would say, come on, God, do what I want you to do, and then I'll know you're real. But I think the difference was, for me as a teenager, I think sheer dumb luck. I just said, man, God, I'll give you my whole life. So I knew this was going to take some time. So I gave God the time, and I gave him my life. And do you know what? After a year, nothing happened. After 2 years, nothing happened. After 3 years, nothing happened with my family. After 4 years, still loneliness. Still my dad not there. I'm going to show you the next... Oh, my boy's still up there. I hope you've been listening to me and not distracted by him. All right, you can change the photo, Jen, thanks. And so I put this photo up of my son and my dad, because this is quite a miracle. Years after I had prayed that prayer, I'd given my life to Jesus, And I was testing him out. And you know what? He didn't fix my family straight away. Not at all. But what he began to do was, I knew I was different. Man, all of a sudden there was a confidence in me I never knew I had. People started giving me a microphone. I was like, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, give it a go. Let's see what happens. And if you knew me when I was 14, I would have, if Esther at 14 years old walked into this room, none of you would have noticed me. Just super quiet, super shy. And anyway, eventually I was leading a youth ministry, part of Equippers in South Auckland, and it was my first Friday to preach at youth. And I get a text from my dad. Hey, Esther. And my dad hasn't really been present up until then. He says, oh, hey, Esther, just wondering if you could help me out. I've just had a heart attack. Could you come to the hospital and move my car so I don't get a ticket? And I was like, what the frick? What is this? Right? I'm like, I'm trying to preach. Like, are you kidding me? And I was like, I didn't even know how to begin to process this. So I just say to my team, I don't know what's going to happen. Someone be ready to preach. I got to go. So I jumped in the car from South Auckland to Central Auckland in peak hour traffic. I am driving. And I'm just like, I'm going to be honest, I was mad. Why? Why do I have to go and do this? Where was he when I needed him? Where was he when I was in hospital? Where was he when I was sick? And now I got to go and do this. This is some kind of cosmic joke. And I'm driving in, and I hear God speak to me. And I hear God say, Esther, before you get to that hospital, you forgive your dad. And I was like, no. Nah. Right? This is, Esther, Queen Esther, right? No. Yeah, cool. Good idea, God. No. And I keep on driving. I arrive at the hospital. I hear God again. Esther, before you get to that hospital room, you forgive your dad. And I said, nah. You've forgiven him. Why should I? Doesn't need my forgiveness. You've done that. All good. And so I'm walking again. I park the car, get up, and I'm just about to walk into the room. And God speaks one more time. And he says, Esther, if you don't forgive your father, you will never let me be yours. And I thought, whoa, that's a pretty good reason. So I stood there, and I just said, Lord, I hear you. I don't know how to do this, but I forgive my dad. For all those years, I forgive him. And I walked into that hospital room, and I saw my dad lying on that bed. And I just began to cry and cry, as well as, why did you send me a text? Are you kidding me, Dad? I just began to cry and cry. And as I was standing there talking to my dad, in that space, I just said to him, Dad, man, we've been through a lot. And I just want you to know, I forgive you. For all the things that's happened, all the past, I forgive you and I love you. And my dad just cried and cried and cried and cried. The next day, my mum shows up to the hospital with my stepdad. And they are in there. My brother turns up too. And so we're all there in the hospital. And I'm standing there going, oh my gosh. What is going to happen? They better get security up in here. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I see my mum and my stepdad talking to my dad. And they haven't talked in years. They haven't talked without something explosive happening. And as they come out, I'm talking to my mum. And my mum says, oh, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. Your father just said to me, thank you. I said, what do you mean, thank you for what? She said, your father just thanked me for raising you. Your father just thanked my stepdad, just thanked him for being there when he couldn't be there. I looked at my brother, I was like, gee, there is a God. I was like, if we were unsure before, what is happening? And then at the end of that, after that, like my dad gets out of hospital, he has a quadruple bypass surgery. He recovers. At Christmas time, my dad calls up, "What are you guys up to for Christmas?" I said, "Oh, we're just having a feed as usual." "Can I come?" "Yep, Mum's going to be there." "You sure?" "Yep." And for the first time in 15 years, my whole family is sitting there at Christmas time together. And I'm sitting there and I'm like this. Myself and my brothers were like, what? And we were waiting, right? We were waiting for the plates to start flying. Someone say something. We were waiting. And the whole time, it was this incredible Christmas. And we have had consecutive Christmases like that. Our whole family together. Don't tell me there isn't a God. Like what on earth? What on earth? And then there's this. And I'm going to wrap this up really good. Yeah, Brigitte, come on up, girl. So there's this photo. When I was pregnant with Malachi, we couldn't figure out what his name would be. I am in labor, going to the hospital. And, my husband's an NBA fan. So we're trying to name my son during our pregnancy. And Ben would call up while he was on tour, "Babe, I got a great name for our son, Kobe." Hang up, right? Just don't talk to me. Yeah, so we would argue. He legit wanted to name our son Kobe. The other name was, what was it? LeBron. It was LeBron. The other name was Griffin, as in Blake Griffin. And then on the way to the hospital, Ben looks at me and he says, "Malachi." And I said, "That's his name." So we drove to the hospital. Right, I am in labor. Don't worry, guys, it's not going to get gory. Chill out, it's all good. But I am in labor. Only my mum and my husband are in the room with me. And then my mum leaves the room and then she comes back in. She's like, "Esther, guess what?" I said, "What?" She says, "Your father's here." And I was like, "Who told him to come? Who invited him? He doesn't want to be here for this, Ma." And my mum said, "I don't know." And Ben, my husband, was like, "Oh, I texted him." My husband's like, I texted him and said, "Hey, your grandson's coming today." I didn't tell him to come though, he just showed up. And my mum is freaking out. And I'm like, I was like, "Mum, I can't deal with you. I'm busy. Just chill." And my mum says, No, Esther. She says, "You don't understand. He wasn't even in the room when you were born, when your brothers were born. He wasn't there. He's here." And I was like, "That's amazing. Another time, Mum." Just another time, please. So Malachi is born and I'm not standing, I'm lying down. And I have Malachi in my hands and my arms, and he's hours old. And I said to my mum, I said, "Yeah, let the family in." And all who walks in is my dad and my stepdad. And they stand each on one side of me. And they lay hands on me. And they pray. And I've never heard my dad pray. I've never heard it. And my dad prayed and he blessed my son. And my stepdad prayed. And he said, just as the book of Malachi is the end of the Old Testament, that he will be a bridge to the new. And sis, put that photo back up. Yeah. Oh, that's my dad. That's my dad cuddling my boy. And honestly, I had to tell my dad, because every day with Malachi, maybe the first 6 months of Malachi's life, my dad would message, "What are you guys up to? And I'm like, "Yeah, just chilling, Dad, being a mum." "Okay, I'm going to come over with some food." I'd never seen my dad so much until this kid was born. Next photo. Oh, yeah. My dad's an academic, right? My dad's he's a lecturer at AUT in Auckland, precision engineering. So that's my dad telling my grandson he's got to be smart. His grandson, he's got to be smart. And the next photo. And then there's this photo. You can keep this one up. This photo's months on. And it's about Easter time in 2019, Easter. And this is Sunday, we're at church. The Saturday, the day before, Dad messages me, "What are you guys up to?" Same thing as every day, Dad, chilling out. And he says, "Oh, shall we have lunch together?" Now, when Dad says, "Shall we have lunch together?" the answer is always yes. Why? Because he pays. So it's always like, "Yes, Dad, there's a new restaurant, let's go here." So we went out to this restaurant, we had lunch, and my dad says, "Hey, are you going to church tomorrow?" I said, "Of course, always." And he says, "Oh, can I come?" I said, "Yep, sure." So he comes along, and this is him at church with us the next day. And I'm sitting there, right? Pastor Sam is preaching, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, this is the moment. This is the moment that I've been waiting for since I was 14 years old. Man, God, you've already done so many things, but if my dad could only just know you, God, if he could just know you, that would just be the cherry on top." And so we're sitting here in this service, right? Pastor Sam's preaching, and then I hear my dad snoring. And I'm like, Dad, you can't sleep in the service. This is my church. I'm like a pastor here. Like, you can't do that, Dad. And he's like, "Oh, sorry." And I'm just trying to deal with my own disappointment as well as keep my dad awake. So in my heart, I'm going, "Oh, okay, well, maybe not this Sunday. God, you've been so good so far. Maybe another day. It's all good. I'll just keep him awake." And then at the end of the service, Pastor Sam gives out the call if there's anyone who wants to know Jesus. And in that time, I have hope in my heart still, and I'm sitting there, but I'm kind of sitting there like this, and my dad doesn't lift his hand, and I thought, "Oh, that's all right, all good." And I just "Okay, God, you're still good, you're still moving, you've still done amazing things. And then Pastor Sam says, if you've known God before, but you've walked away, perhaps this is your moment too. And at that, I see my dad's hand shoot straight up. And at this moment, I got to hold my dad's hand. And I got to pray a prayer with my dad. He would invite Jesus into his heart. Now, you've got to understand, this is the man who was the source of our shame and our pain and our hurt and our rejection. And it didn't happen overnight, but my faithful and kind and generous and true God walked with my family. And even when I didn't know he was working, God was working. And even when I thought he was far away, he was working. He was moving and he was shifting things. Oh, thank you. Oh, Ian, you're just gold. He's been giving me coffee and treats and now tissues. God bless you, Ian. God bless you. We need more Ians in the world. And listen, if God hadn't done this is, and I say this really truthfully and really honestly, if God hadn't done this, I would still be following him. I would still be following him with full faith. Because for me, this is a wonderful testimony. But the greatest testimony for me is I have no shame anymore. I can smile for real. I can hold my head up high. And if that's all God ever did for me, that would be more than enough. But then God exceeds every expectation I have. And he does this. Is there any more photos, Jid? No, that's it. Okay, you can take that one off. Just to finish, I'm a little bit of a geek. I love to read. I'm an avid reader. And I love research and I love history. And I was a history student at school as well as other things. But I took history and I loved to read history. When you read history, you quickly find out that there's history that happened, and then there's history that's told. And when we read history that's told. There's a dominant narrative. There's a perspective that history is told from, and that's what we read often. And so in the same way, when I think of my life, and when we think of our lives, there's a dominant voice that retells the story. And for me, that dominant voice used to be rejection and loneliness and hurt and pain. But now, fam, I look back on my life, and in all sensitivity, I look back on my life and I think I would not have changed a thing. Because in my pain, I have seen the healing power of God. In my hurt, I have seen Him rescue and redeem and reconcile. And I am thankful now for all that I have gone through, because it has meant that God has made me strong. And He has shown me and my family a grace that I never would have known of otherwise. And so tonight, there's a couple of things. Look, the pizza's probably arrived now, but I'm still gonna pray. You can hold on for 5 minutes. I really want to pray tonight, firstly, for people who you know, as I've been sharing my story, you know you've got to forgive. Let me say this: forgiveness is not about letting those who hurt you off the hook. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness, when the Bible talks about forgiveness, the Greek word that it uses in the New Testament, the meaning of that word means to leave from one place to go to another. So forgiveness is not about, again, letting an aggressor off the hook or letting an offender off the hook. Forgiveness is about, I want to leave this place of hurt and pain, and I want to go to another place of healing. That's what it's about. It's about saying, I release this person and I forgive this person, because until I do, this dominant voice is going to continue to write my story. I don't know if I'd be able to have a healthy marriage if I didn't forgive my dad. I don't know if I'll be able to be a healthy parent if I didn't forgive my dad. But since I forgave my dad, I am able now to walk to a healthy place of healthy relationships. Getting there, right? Because we're all human. Of healthy relationships, not because of me, but because God has given me the ability to say, I let go and I release. And do you know why? He's given me the ability because He first forgave me. Anything I've done, anything I've said. One of the greatest things I love about Jesus is that He loves the ugly and the broken and the tossed aside and the discontented. And there's no ugly that's too ugly for God. There's no broken that's too broken. He just welcomes us in. And so tonight, if you know maybe there's someone you need to forgive, I think tonight's the night to begin that process. Why don't you stand to your feet? So here's what I'm going to do. Why don't you close your eyes? And tonight, if you know, man, there's someone that even you have brought to your memory that perhaps has said something or done something, and you know, I need to forgive. With every head bowed and eye closed, I just think there's a moment here tonight where God's going to give you the grace to release them from your judgment, release them, forgive them, and to move from that place of offense to a place of healing. So if that's you tonight, would you just in this private moment, would you dare to just lift your hand and say, yep, that's me. I'm responding to God to forgive, to forgive. No longer am I going to let my past dictate my future. No longer are the voices of hurt and abuse or offense going to write my story. Would you just lift your hand in this place? Not to me, but to God. And Father, right now, as people are responding all over this auditorium, I just thank you that now your Spirit, your Holy Spirit, is helping each one to release, to let go. And even I just believe for some people, the face of people are coming up into your memory. And even in your body, there's a tenseness that's you can feel in your body. But right now, I just believe, come on, just take a deep breath and then release. And as you exhale, in a sense, just say that in your spirit, I let go. I release them. No longer is that thing or that situation going to hold me back, or every time I step forward, it's not going to hold me back. And right now, God, I just pray for each person. Lord, help us to forgive. If you are responding now, would you just, with me, would you just confess with your mouth, I forgive. I forgive. I release them from my judgment. I release them from my expectation to apologize. I release them from my expectation for them to make things better or make things right. I release them. I release them. And even as you confess that now, I just pray a hope would begin to rise in you, a confidence, a joy, a joy, a joy. Some of you tonight are going to laugh like the deep belly laugh that you haven't been laughing. But even as you forgive, there's going to be a lightness in your spirit. And I thank you for that, God. I thank you even for tears of joy as people release those weights, release those heavy burdens. Thank you, God.